my future mother-in-law, demanded proof of my income. I showed her my bank account. She screamed. I walked out twice. Then she hired a private investigator. The night I showed my future mother-in-law my bank account, she went so pale that for one terrifying second, I genuinely thought she might collapse face first onto her own designer tablecloth. She did not pass out. She screamed. And the woman I was supposed to marry, the woman who had cried happy tears into my shoulder only 3 weeks earlier, when I proposed on a snow-dusted ridge outside Aspen, shot to her feet and yelled, "Marcus, what are you doing? Aren't you ashamed in front of my mother?" I looked at my fiancée. I looked at her mother. The silence stretched between us like a held breath. Then I said, "As the questions go, dear, so do the answers." I buttoned my jacket, walked to the front door, and stepped out into the cool night while Victoria Hargrove's rage echoed through the house behind me like something trapped, furious, and desperate to get out. And that was only the beginning. My name is Marcus Reed, and before I tell you how everything unraveled, you need to understand one thing about me. I am not a dramatic person. I do not enjoy conflict. I do not chase confrontation. And I do not get a thrill from embarrassing people in their own dining rooms. I am a 29-year-old software engineer who works remotely from a one-bedroom apartment with 3 monitors, a standing desk, and a balcony overlooking the kind of city street that stays just quiet enough for a person to think. My most extravagant ritual is walking 4 blocks to a neighborhood coffee shop on Sunday mornings, ordering a dark roast, sitting by the window, and reading whatever financial report I have been chewing through that week. I drive a 2014 Honda Accord with 112,000 miles on it. I clip grocery coupons out of habit more than necessity. I own 6 identical gray t-shirts because I decided years ago that wasting mental energy on clothing decisions was a luxury I did not care to buy. By every external signal I sent into the world, I looked like a solid but unremarkable guy with a decent tech salary and a quiet life. That was not an accident. It was entirely deliberate. Elena Hargrove and I met at a mutual friend's housewarming party 26 months before the dinner that blew everything apart. She was wearing a burgundy blazer, standing across the room, laughing at something I could not hear. That laugh was the first thing I noticed. It was loud, unguarded, completely unself-conscious, the kind of laugh that makes the people around it feel invited into something warmer than the room they are standing in. We talked for 3 hours that night. We traded numbers before I left. We got coffee the following Tuesday. By the 3rd date, I already knew Elena was different. She was beautiful in the kind of way that made you forget to blink. But it was never just beauty. She was sharp, fast-thinking, observant, and genuinely kind beneath all that polish. She worked as a senior marketing strategist at a mid-sized agency downtown, and she was good at her job in a way that made her colleagues both admire her and fear her a little. She had this openness to the world that I found quietly extraordinary. Like she still believed life could surprise her in good ways if she paid attention. She was also, as I learned gradually, the product of a very specific kind of upbringing. Her father, Richard Hargrove, was a corporate attorney with a corner office in a glass tower and 25 years of reputation behind him. He was methodical, fair-minded, and careful with words in the way other men are careful with investments. I liked him early. He had the contained energy of a man who had learned how to wait, how to listen, and how to let other people reveal themselves before he made a move. Her mother, Victoria Hargrove, was something else entirely. Victoria had once been a model, and somewhere along the way, she had transitioned into the role of full-time social architect. She managed charity events, curated guest lists, monitored the social temperature of entire rooms, and held opinions about other people's life choices with the confidence of someone who had mistaken habit for wisdom. She had grown up poor, not aesthetically poor, not we had to skip vacations poor, but genuinely difficult childhood poor. She had clawed her way up through looks, intelligence, endurance, and a marriage that placed her in a different zip code and eventually a different world. That backstory explained a lot. It did not excuse everything. I noticed Victoria's habit of cataloging people within 30 seconds of meeting them. It was not subtle. Her eyes would do a quick inventory. Shoes, watch, car keys on the table, fabric quality, posture, accent. Then she would file that person into a category. I could tell she filed me into the promising but unconfirmed column during our first dinner together, 14 months before the night everything collapsed. She was never openly hostile at first. It was more like a slow background pressure, the kind you do not fully notice until you realize you have been holding tension in your jaw for an hour. Small comments about career trajectories, gentle suggestions that Elena deserved security. Casual remarks about how love was wonderful, but stability was what made marriages survive. Once, at a birthday dinner, Victoria mentioned within earshot that she hoped Elena was being realistic about her future. I said nothing. I was always going to say nothing. Right up until I was not. I proposed to Elena on a Friday evening in March during a weekend we had spent at a small lodge outside Aspen. The pine air was cold and clean. Snow still clung to the ground in uneven patches, and the sky had that specific shade of blue it gets at elevation, just before dark, dense and saturated, like the color had been turned all the way up. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say, but Elena said yes before I even finished the sentence. Actually, she laughed and said yes before I had opened the box properly. We stood there in the cold for a long time, just holding each other, and for the first time in years, I let myself feel the full weight of something good without immediately cataloging every possible risk. We did not get to stay inside that feeling for long. Victoria called the next morning. Within 4 minutes, she had suggested we have a family dinner the following weekend to celebrate and discuss the future. The word discuss did a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. I knew, the way you sometimes just know things, that the dinner was not going to be about champagne and warm congratulations. The Hargrove house was a 6-bedroom Tudor revival inside a gated community on the north side of the city. Professional landscaping, a kitchen that had been renovated twice in 10 years, original art in the hallways, purchased rather than inherited, which is its own particular kind of statement. Victoria had set the table with china I recognized from an online luxury home goods retailer, at least $400 a place setting. She was wearing a Valentino pantsuit. I knew that because Elena whispered it to me in the car, slightly nervously, in the way people mention details when they are trying to prepare you for something, without saying directly that you need to prepare. The first 2 courses went smoothly. Richard talked about a complex case he had recently closed. Elena talked about a campaign she was leading at work. Victoria asked me surface-level questions about remote work in the tone of someone rehearsing lines before the real audition began. Then, the main dish arrived. Victoria set down her fork, looked directly at me, and said, "So, Marcus, how much do you actually earn?" You know that moment in a film where a record scratches and every sound in the room seems to vanish at once? The table fell into exactly that kind of silence. Richard went very still, in a way I had come to recognize as his conflict management posture. Elena shifted beside me and did not speak. "I'm sorry?" I kept my voice level. "You heard me," Victoria said. She leaned forward slightly, the way people do when they want you to understand that they are serious. "Monthly. Annually. I want numbers. Proof. Bank statements. Tax returns. Something concrete. My daughter deserves to know exactly what kind of life she is stepping into." I took a slow breath through my nose. I could have argued. I could have asked whether she had demanded a financial report from every person who had ever dated her daughter. I could have pointed out that we were not in a loan office, that this was supposed to be an engagement dinner. I could have reminded her that decency usually involves waiting for someone to offer private information, not demanding proof of their worth before the salad plates are even cleared. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. "You want proof?" I said. "Fine." Victoria's eyes lit up. "I want to be precise about that." In the moment before she saw the screen, she looked like someone who believed she was about to win something. She had the bright, focused look of a person who had already planned her next move. I opened my banking app, navigated to my main brokerage account, and turned the screen toward her. The color drained from her face in a way I had never seen before on a living person. It happened slowly, then all at once, like watching concrete set. That can't be right," she whispered. Elena leaned over and went equally still. Her eyes moved across the screen twice, the way eyes do when they cannot trust the first reading. "Marcus," she said carefully, "what is this?" "That is my investment portfolio and my main brokerage account," I said. "Current balance." What I showed Victoria was real. Every cent of it had been earned, grown, compounded, and protected over 8 years of disciplined investing and deliberate obscurity. What I did not tell her, what she would only learn later, was that the account I showed her was only the visible layer. The front-facing portfolio I kept accessible for exactly this kind of moment, if it ever came. It was significant. It was not the whole picture. Victoria's hand shook slightly as she reached across the table and took the phone from me. She stared at the numbers while her expression cycled rapidly through disbelief, recalculation, and then, settling into something uglier, rage. "Where did you get this money?" she asked, and her voice cracked on the word get. "This isn't possible for someone your age and your position. Are you involved in something illegal? Some kind of scam?" I took the phone back calmly. "No, Mrs. Hargrove. I have been investing since I was 21. Every spare dollar from my first job. Compound interest. Disciplined saving. Diversified positions across index funds, growth stocks, and a few private ventures that paid off well. I live modestly because I do not need to put wealth on display. But the money is real. It is mine. And it grows every day. She stood so quickly that her chair rocked backward on the tile. You lied to us. The word came out like something thrown. All this time. That apartment, that car, those plain clothes. You were sitting on a fortune. What kind of game are you playing? What kind of man deceives his fiancée's family like this? Elena was on her feet too now, her face flushed and confused in equal measure. Marcus, what are you doing? Aren't you ashamed in front of my mother? Why would you hide something like this? I looked at my fiancée, then at Victoria, and something settled in my chest. It was not anger. It was not triumph. It was a quiet, final kind of clarity. As the questions go, I said, so do the answers, dear. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked toward the door. Victoria's voice followed me. You think you can walk away after humiliating me like this? After deceiving my daughter? I paused at the door and turned slightly. I did not deceive anyone. I simply did not volunteer information that was never asked for respectfully. You demanded proof. I gave it. Now you have it. The door closed behind me. Her outrage echoed faintly through the house as I walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment before starting the engine. The streetlights looked strangely bright. My hands were steady. Then I drove home. My apartment felt smaller than usual when I got back. I poured a glass of water, sat at my desk, and let the silence settle around me. Then I opened my laptop and reviewed my actual positions. Here is the thing about money that most people who do not have a lot of it never fully understand. The visible layer is almost never the whole picture. The account I had shown Victoria, the main brokerage with the number that had drained her face, was the safe account. It was the account I maintained for transparency, if transparency was ever required. What lived beneath it was more complex. Offshore structures for asset protection. A stake in 3 startups that had recently gone public. Patent royalties from 3 algorithms I had filed and licensed to mid-sized tech companies. Commercial real estate holdings managed through a discrete property firm. A cryptocurrency position I had entered in the early years at prices that seemed absurd even to me at the time, and had mostly exited profitably. None of it was illegal. All of it was private. And I had built every layer of that privacy deliberately, because I had understood since I was 22 years old that wealth changes rooms the moment it enters them. My phone buzzed at 9:47 p.m. Elena. I answered. What the hell was that? Her voice was tight, not quite angry, not quite frightened, the tone of someone navigating a feeling she had not named yet. Your mother asked a question, I said. I answered it. You could have told me. A pause. We are engaged. I thought we told each other everything. Did you tell me? I asked quietly. That your mother has been commenting on my career stability for the past year? Did you tell me that she once suggested within earshot at Christmas that I should think about aiming higher? Did you tell me that last spring, after dinner, when she pulled you aside and asked whether I had a 5-year plan, it was not because she was simply making conversation? Silence. I did not want our relationship to become about numbers, I continued. I wanted it to be about us. Another pause. Then Elena's voice softened. The numbers are real? Yes. You are actually comfortable? Very. But that does not change who I am. She inhaled slowly. Mom wants more proof. Her voice shifted, tentative now. She thinks one screenshot is not enough. Tax documents, investment statements, everything. She thinks you are hiding something worse. I almost laughed, not because anything was funny, but because it was almost impressively predictable. Of course she does, I said, because if I am not poor, her story falls apart. She cannot play the protective mother saving her daughter from a broke programmer anymore. That is not fair. Ask yourself why she asked about my income before she asked about my values. Elena did not answer that. We agreed I would come back the next morning. I arrived at 11 with a slim manila folder and a practiced expression of patience I did not entirely feel. Victoria was waiting in the living room like someone who had spent the entire night assembling arguments. Back straight, immaculate, composed in the way that takes real effort to maintain. Sit down, Marcus, she said. We need full disclosure. I sat. I already showed you proof that it is legitimate. Without reacting, I slid the folder across the coffee table. Inside were 3 years of redacted tax returns, brokerage account summary statements, and a letter on firm letterhead from my financial advisor, Daniel Morse, a certified financial planner with 14 years in practice, confirming the legitimacy of the assets and the structures that held them. It was not the full picture. It was more than any reasonable person had the right to demand. Victoria flipped through it, her eyes narrowed. This still does not explain how a software engineer your age. I work hard, I said. I invest smarter. I avoid lifestyle inflation. That is the boring truth. She slammed the folder shut. I do not believe it. No one builds this quietly without something to hide. Until I know the full story, I cannot support this marriage. Elena looked torn between us. I stood slowly. I have explained enough, Mrs. Hargrove. Respect goes both ways. I will not be treated like a suspect in my own engagement. Victoria's voice sharpened. Then perhaps you should not be engaged at all. The words hit Elena first. Her eyes filled. Mom, stop! I looked at my fiancée one last time. I love you, Elena, but I will not beg for approval based on my bank balance. When you are ready to choose between your mother's demands and the man you said yes to, call me. I walked out for the second time. As I reached my car, Victoria's voice carried down from an upstairs window. I will find out the truth about you, Marcus Reed. One way or another. I did not turn back. 2 days later, at 6:14 p.m. I was on a video call with a client when an unknown number called. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened to it afterward, a calm male voice said, Mr. Reed, this is Richard Langford from Langford Private Investigations. I have been engaged by Mrs. Victoria Hargrove to conduct a background and financial review. I would like to schedule a conversation at your earliest convenience. I sat with that for a moment. Then I called back. Mr. Langford, I said, I appreciate the courtesy of the call. I will not be meeting with you in person. Whatever exists in the public record, you are welcome to access. But please pass something along to your client for me. I paused. Tell her to be careful what she digs for. Some answers come with consequences she might not expect. He thanked me politely and hung up. I was not worried about what he would find. I had nothing illegal, nothing immoral, and nothing that would hold up as scandal no matter how someone tried to frame it. What I was private. And there is a meaningful difference. Privacy is not the same as guilt. It only looks that way to people who assume everyone with locked doors must be hiding something shameful. The days that followed were uneasy and slow. Elena sent short, conflicted texts. I responded that I was available to talk alone, without her mother directing the conversation from the wings. She did not push further. I used the time to work. I was deep in development on an AI-driven analytics tool. 6 months of architecture were finally approaching the testing phase. I reviewed quarterly investment reports. I quietly increased my positions in 2 biotech firms, whose pipelines I had been tracking for 8 months. I did not call Victoria. I did not explain myself further. I waited. On the 4th day, at 7:22 p.m., Elena appeared at my apartment without warning. She looked tired in the particular way that only sustained emotional exhaustion produces. Her hair was pulled back. She wore minimal makeup, jeans, and a sweater. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation and wrapped her arms around me. I'm sorry, she said into my chest. She has been impossible. She hired the investigator, and now she is obsessing over every detail of your life. She called my dad back early from New York. I held her for a moment, then gently pulled back. Do you think I am a criminal, Elena? She shook her head quickly. No, but the numbers. She stopped, then started again. Why keep it from me? We have talked about houses, travel, kids. I thought we were building toward that together from the ground up. We still are, I said. The money does not change my plans. It gives us options. But I did not want our relationship to start with spreadsheets and expectations. I wanted you to choose me because of who I am when no one is watching. She twisted her engagement ring, the way she always did when she was trying to process something too large to say all at once. Mom keeps saying that if you are really that wealthy, you should have been more generous. Offered to help with Dad's firm. Something. She feels like you were mocking us. Generous how? I asked. By throwing money at things before anyone asked? That is not generosity. That is performance. I leaned forward. I help when it makes sense, and when it is requested respectfully. Not as proof of worth, not as a down payment on acceptance. She looked at the floor for a moment. Show me more, she finally said. Not for Mom, for me. I want to understand the real version of you, the one who built all this. I hesitated. Then I went to my desk drawer and retrieved a second, much thicker folder. This one was less redacted. She read through it slowly. The full asset allocation. 40% in broad market index funds, 25% in individual growth stocks, 15% in private equity through carefully vetted angel investments, 10% in commercial real estate holdings managed at arm's length, the rest in cash equivalents. There was also the cryptocurrency position I had entered at prices that looked absurd in retrospect in the best possible way. 3 patent documents, royalty income statements. A timeline of every major investment decision from age 21 to the present. She closed the folder carefully and set it on the cushion beside her. This is life-changing money, Marcus. Why live in this apartment? Why drive that car? Because when the market corrects, and it will, because it always does, I do not want to be the person selling their lifestyle to survive. I want freedom, not flash. Then I added, and I wanted to know whether the woman I loved would still want me at $60,000 a year. She looked at me for a long time. Then a small, real smile appeared. I would, she said. I do. What Langford's investigation turned up 10 days later was not what Victoria had been hunting for. It was something else entirely. My phone buzzed on a Thursday afternoon with an urgent message from Elena. Mom found something. She is furious. Come now, please. I ended my work call, grabbed my keys, and drove straight there. The atmosphere in the house hit me the moment I walked in. Cold, suspended. Victoria was pacing the living room with papers in her hand, and Richard, who had been back from New York for 3 days, sat on the couch looking unusually pale. Elena stood by the window with her arms wrapped around herself. Victoria spun toward me. You have been playing us from the very beginning. I closed the door and kept my voice level. Good evening, Mrs. Hargrove. What am I being accused of this time? She thrust the papers at me. They were printed copies from Langford's latest report. Records of anonymous charitable donations spanning 6 years. Large ones. They had gone to women's shelters, a STEM education fund for low-income students, a tech scholarship program, and a small business incubator focused on first-generation entrepreneurs. I already knew what the last page said before she confirmed it. One of the scholarship recipients was a young woman named Sophia Lang, Elena's first cousin on her father's side, from a branch of the family that had fallen on difficult times after a bitter divorce 15 years earlier. Sophia had grown up with a single mother, working 2 jobs, and a genuine gift for computer science that had nowhere to go without money behind it. The scholarship had paid for her entire degree and launched her career. She had never known the donor's name. I had been careful about that. You funded my niece's education, Victoria said, her voice shaking, without telling anyone. You inserted yourself into our family years before you even met Elena. What kind of twisted, calculating, stop? Richard's voice came out flat and firm, and Victoria stopped. Elena looked at me. Is it true? Yes, I said simply. I had reviewed hundreds of applications through the private foundation I supported. Sophia's story had stood out on its own merits. Her academic performance, her tenacity, the precision of her application. I had not known she was connected to Elena's family until 8 months into my relationship with Elena. When I realized it, I chose not to say anything. Not because I was ashamed, but because announcing it would have looked exactly like what Victoria was accusing me of now. Strategic manipulation. I did not give the scholarship to gain access to your family, I said. I gave it because Sophia was exceptional and deserved a chance. The connection to you was a coincidence, I discovered later. I stayed quiet because saying it out loud would have turned a genuine act into a transaction. Victoria laughed, a short, hollow sound. How noble. While you sat at my table being interrogated about your finances, you were secretly playing benefactor to my own flesh and blood. Do you want applause? A medal? I want nothing, I said. I never did. This changes everything, Victoria snapped. Some secretive rich man pulling strings in the background. How do we know what else you were hiding? Maybe you sought Elena out deliberately. Maybe this whole relationship is a long-term plan of some kind. That is enough, Victoria. Richard stood up, and his voice carried an edge I had never heard from him before. This man has endured more in the past 2 weeks than I would have. He showed restraint when he had every right to walk away permanently. He funded a member of our family without strings, without credit, without even telling anyone. And you are standing here treating it as evidence of conspiracy. He looked at her steadily. I am ashamed. Victoria turned on him. You are taking his side? I am taking the side of what is true, Richard said. Our daughter is happy with this man. He has shown his character every time you tested it. Maybe it is time you examine why you keep finding new reasons to doubt him. The room went quiet. Elena looked at me across the silence with tears on her face. I do not know what to think, Marcus. All these layers. I feel like I do not know the real you. You do, I said gently. You know the man who stays up late debugging beside you. You know the man who makes terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings. You know the man who listens when you talk about what you want your life to mean. The money is a tool I have used carefully. The person using it is the same one who has been in front of you since day one. Victoria sat down heavily. For the first time, the fight seemed to cost her something. If this marriage is going to happen, she said, there will be conditions. Full transparency going forward. A prenuptial agreement that protects Elena. No private arrangements involving this family. I met her eyes. Respect and trust are not items on a negotiation checklist, I said. They are either there or they are not. I left without shouting, without threats, without a single moment of theater. But something had shifted in me. The constant demands, the investigations, the accusations repackaged every few days into a new shape. They were eroding something foundational, and I would not let that erosion continue indefinitely. 2 days later, at 8:51 inches the morning, my phone rang with an unknown number. The voice on the other end was young, female, and slightly nervous. Marcus? It is Sophia, Elena's cousin. I just found out you were the one behind the scholarship. I have been trying to process it since last night. I sat down. Sophia, I kept my voice neutral. How did you? Aunt Victoria called me, she told me. Then she asked me something. A pause. She asked me to help her. She said she needed me to tell Elena that the scholarship must have had an ulterior motive. That you are manipulative and calculating. She offered to... Sophia stopped and took a breath. She offered to compensate me for my time if I did. My jaw tightened slightly. Just slightly. I recorded the whole call, Sophia continued. I did not plan to. I record a lot of calls for my own records. It is a habit from working in tech. I have the full audio. I have a transcript. It is all there. Her exact words, the offer, everything. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you changed my life, she said simply. Without that scholarship, I would still be drowning. You did not know me. You did not ask for anything. You gave me a future. Her voice steadied. Elena deserves to know what her mother is actually doing, not the version Victoria is performing for the family. I thanked her. I told her I would not pull her further into this than she chose to be. That evening, I sent Elena a single message. I need to talk to you alone. No parents. My place, 8 p.m. Bring your mother if you need to, but I hope you do not. She arrived at 7:55, alone. I did not waste time with preamble. I played the recording. Victoria's voice filled my apartment. Sharp, deliberate, unhurried. She walked Sophia through exactly how to frame the story. Which words to emphasize. How to express doubt about my motives. The offer, not large, but real and specific, came about 4 minutes in. Elena listened without moving. When it ended, she sat down on the couch and covered her face with both hands. She did not cry. She just held herself very still for a long moment. I cannot believe she did this, she finally said, quiet, almost toneless. I am not showing you this to hurt you, I said, sitting across from her. I am showing you because you deserve to see the full picture. Your mother turned our engagement into a financial interrogation from the first question she asked. I answered every demand calmly, factually, without drama. Every new thing she found became a new accusation. And now this. Elena looked up. Her eyes were dry. Something had settled in them. Not anger, exactly. Resolution. What do you want me to do? I want you to choose, I said. Not between me and your mother, between the life you actually want and the one she is trying to engineer. I love you, but I will not live inside this cycle. I will not keep justifying my existence to someone who has already decided what I am. She was quiet for a long time. The city outside made its quiet city sounds. Someone's car alarm went off a block away. Wind brushed against the balcony door. Then she reached for my hand. I choose us, she said. What we talked about before any of this. I am sorry it took me this long to see how toxic it had become. We went to her parents' house together the next morning. Richard opened the door and read the room immediately, the way experienced lawyers do, quietly, in a single glance. Victoria was in the living room. She saw Elena's face and went still. Elena spoke first, and her voice was steadier than I had heard it in weeks. Mom, we listened to the recording. Victoria's face went through several colors. That girl is lying. She has always been no more. Elena's voice did not rise. It did not waver. Marcus has shown us exactly who he is, over and over, under conditions that would have broken most people. You demanded proof of his income, and he gave it. You demanded documents, and he provided them. You hired investigators, and he remained calm. Then instead of being grateful, or even just respectful, you tried to pay his scholarship recipient to undermine him. I will not live inside that, Mom. I will not. Victoria turned to me. Her eyes were bright with something that was not entirely anger anymore. And you? She said, with your calm little replies. As the questions go, so do the answers. You think you are so superior. I think respect is earned through actions, not bank statements, I said. I answered every question you asked exactly as it was asked. If you had asked about my values, my plans for Elena's happiness, or how I treat her, you would have received very different answers. But you asked about money, so that is what you got. Richard placed a hand on his wife's shoulder. Victoria, it is over. Our daughter has made her choice. We can support them, or we can watch them build their life without us. He paused. That is the only decision left for you. For the first time in all the weeks I had known her, Victoria Hargrove looked small. The performance drained out of her slowly, like air leaking from something overinflated. She sat down and stared at the floor. I only wanted to protect her, she said, and her voice cracked slightly on the word, protect. I have seen what happens to women who trust the wrong men. I have seen what money does to people. I thought, I know, Elena said softly. She knelt in front of her mother, but protecting me does not mean controlling me. It does not mean humiliating the man I love. It does not mean paying people to lie for you. If you can accept Marcus for who he is, not what he is worth, then we can move forward. Otherwise, we will do this without your blessing. The room held its breath. Finally, Victoria looked up at me. It was not warm. It was not effusive. But it was real. I was wrong, she said. About how I asked. About the investigator. About Sophia. I apologize. It was not perfect. It did not erase everything. But it was the first thing she had ever said to me that cost her something. I nodded. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. We got married on a Saturday in October. It was a small ceremony with immediate family and close friends. Sophia sat in the third row with a smile so wide it seemed to take up the entire room. There were no designer displays, no performance, no financial theater, just two people choosing each other in front of the people who had earned the right to be there. Richard shook my hand at the reception and held it an extra beat. Welcome to the family, he said, for real this time. Victoria was civil. More than civil, actually. She made a toast. It was brief, careful, and genuine. Then she hugged Elena for a long time afterward in a way that suggested something had truly shifted between them. Not fixed, not erased. Shifted. Elena and I bought a house a few months later. Comfortable, but not ostentatious. In a neighborhood with a good coffee shop 4 blocks away. We travel when we want to. We invest wisely. We talk about kids in the specific, practical, excited way people talk when they are actually ready to build a life, instead of just decorate one. Occasionally, at family dinners, when old habits press back toward the surface and Victoria starts to recalibrate toward her default orbit, I catch Elena's eye across the table. She squeezes my hand once, barely perceptible, and whispers the line that started everything. As the questions go, so do the answers. And every time, I remember that the most powerful response is not always the loudest one. It is the truest one. The one delivered without performance, without theater, without the need to win. The one that simply hands the questioner exactly what they asked for and lets them sit with the consequences of how they asked. We never needed to show more proof. They just needed to ask better questions.